Now, they are loud and often outspoken. That the Gen Z are impactfully irritating the political class and holding them to account is undeniable. But their glaring absence in the mini polls and their sluggish pace in registering as new voters brings a sharp focus to a generation seemingly missing in action in the electoral process. We debate the youth vote, and as earlier publicized, our guest tonight are youthful equally. Kasmuel is a member of the ODM Youth League, and Njeri is the national youth leader of DCP party. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for making time for us tonight.
Thank you, Abubakar.
Perhaps the most perfect place to begin this discussion, Njeri, and let me start with you, would be where were the young people in the mini polls that were just concluded?
Thank you so much, TV47, for always giving the young people an opportunity, something that the government of Kenya is unable to do each and every day. First of all, when we want to discuss about the by-elections, it would be very unfair to talk about the Gen Z. Maybe we can talk about the youth who were registered voters previously, because we know at by-elections, the voters registration that is used is the one that was there in 2022. And again, by-elections locations, when we opened for CVR, those locations were not open for people to register because they had by-elections. What we should ask ourselves is, why is the youth, because the Gen Z and the youth are two different categories. There is the youth that includes the millennials, and there is the youth that includes the few Gen Zs who were able to vote in 2022. Like me, I was able to vote in 2022, so I'm part of the Gen Z that would have voted in by-election if it was held in my county, Nyandarua County. But not to deviate from the whole thing, there were young people who were allowed to vote in 2022, and they would have participated in the by-election. But again, I feel like these were the young people who were being marshaled up by the government to be misused as goons. These were the young people, again, who were being used to do violence. So I feel
you make mention of the register the IEBC used, which, as rightfully you put it, was of 2022.
Yeah.
There were a lot of young people who registered as voters in,
that is why I'm saying,
in Malava in 2022.
That is why I'm saying,
yes,
most of them who should have showed up, most of them were part, instead of them being voters, they decided to be part of the goons that were being used, because no goon was being used who was a 60-year-old. The young people who were being misused to do violence and everything else were young people. And again, schools are ongoing, the university strike is off, so most people were in divergent locations. And as we know, young people, and as we know, when it comes to election, you have to go back to your location to vote in. So I feel like the majority that did not manage to go to election was held up in school activities, and the ones that managed to go to the by-election locations were misused by politicians, and that we have to call out our young people, because we have to be honest with them that we cannot be misusing our numbers to be used up in violence.
We will come to the role of the young people in the electoral process. Let me bring in Kasmuel to the discussion. A year ago, there was an agitation of youthful leaders, youth in the country, calling for a change, wanting to participate and redirect the country's politics. For an observer observing Malava and Bere and the other mini polls, they were glaringly absent, isn't it?
I wouldn't particularly say so, because from my party, the Orange Democratic Movement, the people who helped us to clinch the seats that we clinched were young people. It would be remiss of me to fail to remind the country that we afford yet again the National Assembly, the youngest legislator in the country, from by way of Kasipul and the candidacy of Boyd Were. The people who are drumming support for Boyd were fairly young people, my age mates. Boyd himself is 27 years old, and majority of the campaign team, apart from the upper echelons of the party, were made up of young people. If you go to places like Ugunja, Dan Nyibue, who is the ODM branch chair of Ugunja, is a 27-year-old, and he led campaigns, and we did marvelously there, where we clinched the seats. If you go to Magarini, our branch chair, Mr. Hamza Mohammed, and Akina Civilizer are young people. Those are the branch chairs, and they're the branch chairs of the youth, of the youth league, and just of the general administration of the party. So I do not know about other parties, but in the Orange Democratic Movement, the participation has been fairly driven by young people. A lot of opportunity has been afforded to us. Our participation has not, I cannot speak on Bere or the other places, but I know in our strongholds, the seats we were interested in were mostly driven and led and won by youthful candidates. If you think in comparison.
Who are in a structured ODM system, isn't it?
Structured,
not the leaderless.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying both structured and unstructured, because what we also did is these campaigns, these by-elections gave us a chance to rejuvenate and re-energize the party, but also invite more people. There are people who were not previously in our party who are currently managed to join. There are some who had divergent opinions, but all in all, I think out of the register, while people might wax lyrical and complain that the register for 2022 was
Kasmuel, to a large extent, you are the face of the Gen Z-led bloody protest last year. Bloody from the Kenyans, the innocent young people who were killed. But nonetheless, the shift at that time was leaderless and a call for a new Kenya, saved from the traditional political parties. You are referencing ODM. You have since joined ODM.
Yes.
But does leaderless in any way hold water?
No, it does not. In all truth, it might be when we get to the level where we achieve a communist utopia. But until we get to a classless society, an organized minority will always beat a disorganized majority. And that is why even people who are shouting and chanting leaderless at the very top of their lungs are currently saying, the people who are saying the government must go now have currently defied and realized that, oh, now we have to work towards an election. All of these leading voices, even Njeri, has since joined DCP and is now acting as the youth league leader, which I commend her for. If you think just across the lines, Boniface Mwangi has said that he wants to be president. All these people, they ended up hiding themselves. Like Shakira, they got into Maraga's party. There's some briefcase party that was formed, I think DNA. The young people who are on the streets have since joined legacy political parties. The political formation in Kenya does not allow for such a dynamic. And in the defense of Gen Z, honestly, leaderless did not necessarily mean that we do not want leadership. It just meant that we did not want to have a corruptible leadership. When we said we were tribeless, it did not mean that we do not care about our tribes. It's just that our tribes were used to divide us. And when we said we were partyless, it did not mean that we do not value or esteem political parties. It just meant that at the time, we did not have political parties that cared for our voices. Let me
bring Njeri to the discussion. For the Gen Z and the youthful population to make an impactful political statement, they clearly need a leader, isn't it?
Yeah. And for clarity purposes, last year when we went to Maandamano as young people, I was still a member of a political party. I was part of PNU that time. And when DCP was crafted, I felt that my county, Nyandarua County, is more present in DCP party. And that is when I made a shift. So by the time we were going to Maandamano, not to mean that we did not understand the value of political parties, because truth be told, everything needs to be structured properly. And that is why if today Maandamano were to be done again, I feel they would maybe be more organized than what we did last time, because why the government was able to infiltrate and bring goons and everybody on board and hijack the movement was because we didn't have a clear way of communication. We didn't have a way that we wanted things to be done. We had general issues that we needed addressed, but we did not have particular issues that we wanted them to be addressed, especially in terms of IEBC. Today, if we go to Maandamano, me as a person who has been to Mbere, as a person who have gone to Kariobangi, as a person who has gone to Narok town for campaigns, I can clearly tell the IEBC what I feel needs to be worked on. And we have to be honest with ourselves as young people. It's okay for us to say we are very vibrant. It's very okay for us to say we have the numbers. But I wish the young people can remember that no ballot box is going to come on Twitter. No ballot box is going to be brought on TikTok. We need to go to the ground. We need to take our energy to the ground. And we have to call a spade as a spade if we really want this Gen Z movement and the young people to make a difference. Because what we saw in the last week by election, it only portrayed the young people as tools of violence. The young people were only portrayed as pawns in a game, because we are yet to understand the power that we hold. The moment a CS cabinet secretary comes to a polling station and he's the one assaulting the agents who are there for DCP, the agents who are there for, the agents who are there for DP and other parties, it shows that if the young people had taken aside and said, no, we cannot do this, IEBC does not allow this person would have been left on his own. But because the young people were willing to give the person backup and they were willing to take the defense, and you see, it's even wrong that the young people need to acknowledge and admit that you cannot allow government to arm you, yet you're not a licensed holder of a firearm.
The government says it is politicians and is pointing fingers at politicians, some from your party, of arming the young people.
Let's be very honest. You know, there are things that you can tell people, and there is what that was bluntly in public. There is no way somebody of the side of DP or opposition would have been armed to go support Ruku. Even if they were to support, they would have gone to support the people who are there from opposition. When Ruku comes into a polling station, assaults people, gets them handcuffed and throws them somewhere where we got them early in the morning, it only says one thing. It is the government that has these firearms. Kenyans don't have access to tear gas. Kenyans don't have access to firearm unless you are licensed.
All right, and Njeri, there is a political back and forth of point fingering of the political parties, each accusing the other. Nonetheless, that's not our focus of discussion. Kasmuel, let me come to you. In the 2019 census, 75% of Kenyans were aged below 35. If you look at the current parliament and the Senate, the National Assembly and the Senate, there are few countable under 35 leaders. Is there a disconnect generally with Kenyans of their trust levels with young people who aspire to be their leaders?
I do not think it is a function of disconnect as it is the function of material conditions, in the sense that running elections are very expensive, first of all, resource-wise, and two, in terms of experience, it's rather hard. But we'll also take this opportunity to remind the country that the Orange Democratic Movement boasts of the largest and hugest number of young legislators. So it is a party that has consistently taken big bets on the youthful population in terms of support, despite a historical evidence of underfunding by the Registrar of Political Parties. But that notwithstanding, there are several things which would contribute to young people not clinching the seats. Of course, the organization of our politics is largely within a tribal mosaic, and that's a hurdle that we need to overcome. We need to overcome the hurdle of tribalism, because tribalism, if we bring it down, there's the clanism aspect, there's the aspect of hierarchy in terms of elderly people and whatnot, so you find that some people could be edged out. Then there's the issue of corruption. A lot of these people run because they've stolen money from particular organizations or particular arms of government, and they want political shielding. So that has been a challenge for a lot of young people, but it is encouraging. And even though Njeri and I sit on very different divides politically, it is inspiring to see that she has gotten a chance to lead the youth league of her party, and we're also revolutionizing our youth league in our own respect in the party that I am in. So I think going forward in 2027, it is expected that we will see a surge in the number of young people who will vie for political leadership. This is evidenced, especially because it is corollary to something like Boyd's win, to people like Crystal Asige's presence in Parliament, our nominated MPs, Khair Mohammed and Renee Mayaka. With the Orange Democratic Movement, there is such a great ray of hope for the young people that 2027 going forward is going to be a different kind of election.
Njeri, for a young person watching this program and he or she sees politicians one after another come into office, over-promising, under-delivering, why should they actively participate in an electoral process?
One, because, for instance, I'm 25 years old, and as a young person, I have taken it up to me to join a political party. And for clarity purposes, I'm a member of DCP party. Our youth leader is a different person. I am just a national youth leader. And I have to be very honest with young people. You need to sit at the table where you need change to be done, because you can sit on the other side and say, you people need to do this, but it's only you who can do what you need to be done. And that is why I tell young people, whatever you want to happen, you have to decide to either be at the table or at the menu. When you're not at the table, you become, of course, the menu. And the other time I was discussing with the CEO of Moyo Cares in Oljoro, where she's a woman in her 40s, and we were having this conversation of how hard it is for a young person to vie. And we came to a conclusion that as a young person, first, as my colleague said, you don't have the resources. Secondly, sometimes you get into a party and you find yourself that you have to prove yourself way beyond for you to be allowed in certain positions. And I thank my party, DCP party, because in its small duration of it being running, maybe 7 months or 8 months, it is able to show what the young people can be able to do. It has given a chance to the young people to sit in the NEC leadership. We have 7 to 8 leaders who sit in the NEC who are below 35. And also, again, we as a party have made it our business to ensure that young people can vie. I am vying for Women Rep Nyandarua County, a seat that somebody would tell me, that's a very costly seat, but my party has never told me that, no, you need to go for an MCA seat because you are young. And I want to tell the young people, wherever they stand tonight, that you as a young person need to believe in yourself. The change that you need, the end of corruption that you need is within yourselves. You have to go there and close the loopholes. But again, we need to talk to the voter. The voter needs to bring the cost of an election down. The voter needs to bring the cost of an aspirant vying down. Because let's be very honest, with the money that has been spent in by-election, just these by-election, is enough to push so much development. The president himself sat down and imagined that this country did not have anybody else to lead this nation. And that is why he would get an MP, he would get a senator, they leave their jobs that they were elected to do and give them appointive positions. The president on his own has taken us to a negative $500 million as a cost of by-election, something that would have been avoided. We have so many people who have educational qualifications, experience that would have allowed them to serve in the positions of cabinet positions. But the president felt that, no, I need by-elections for my political reasons. But that aside,
Njeri, you're faulting the president. He has a democratic right.
Yes, I'm faulting him.
For his cabinet,
and again,
he wants, isn't it?
He has the right to choose anybody that he wants. But again, we have millions of Kenyans where he would have chosen from. Does not mean that Duale or whoever, Murkomen or CS Wahome or CS Ruku have the most exceptional qualifications that no other young person or no any other experienced person would have met. We have to be very honest. As a president, you cannot be taking us to an expense of $500 million for you to tell us that because you are the president and you have the prerogative, you can simply pick them. Assuming today the president decided to do a cabinet reshuffle, we've already done by-elections, right? Then he decides the next reshuffle he wants to do in December again, he wants to get 5 more members of parliament, places them in their cabinet.
All right.
So we have to be very honest with ourselves as Kenyans. And to finish on my point on the cost of election, the voter needs to bring down the cost of election. Because if for me to vie for a women rep in my county, or if for my colleague here to go in his county and be a member of parliament, he needs roughly 60 to 100 million. If a woman reps need 100 to 200 million, if a governor needs 400 million to almost $1 billion, especially for Nairobi County, where does the voter think this money comes from? And how is it brought back?
Njeri, you make a very valid point on the cost of elections. Let me bring in Kasmuel. Kasmuel, I online earlier on looked up some of the terms the political class used in referencing young people at the height of the Gen Z protests of last year. The president termed the young people as, quote, misguided. The then Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, said entitled. The then CS, Moses Kuria, described them as woke. Aden Duale termed the youthful people as lazy then. Robert Alai, who is a member of County Assembly, described them as TikTokers. Kipchumba Murkomen is on record saying spoiled. The Nairobi Governor, Johnson Sakaja, terming the young people as irresponsible. The former MP and now Senator Boni Khalwale termed the young people as Nairobi-fied. And many other politicians have used quite strong statements in describing the urge for reform and change of the young people then, which begs the question, is there an attitude problem, both from the political class in how they view the young people, and equally the voters who vote in these leaders?
I don't think the attitude of anyone matters when it comes to elections. Elections are a serious, a terribly awful thing where it requires clarity and purpose of any sort of noise. So those are politicians. You will see that much later, For example, the impeached deputy president started calling us our children. People like Boni Khalwale have now changed their stances. Even the president himself have started saying, let us listen to our children, and those things. So those are political statements which should not, they could be meant to break us mentally, but I do not particularly think that they should hold any weight, especially with the kind of clarity that we have as young people. Because if we want to see a different kind of republic, if we want to see a different kind of leadership, it doesn't matter what anyone calls us. I've been called names, but I know exactly what it is that I want to do. I know what it is that I want to achieve, and the name calling does not come in the way of purpose. It is so clear in my mind, it is so indefatigably clear that any sort of name calling would not deter me from the cause. The attitude of the political class or the voter does not matter in terms of what, we just need to know what needs to be done. It means that we need to show up and vote and ensure that we protect the vote. Currently, as things stand, we've seen the turnout to be a bit lower, so we would need, as young people, to be a bit more vibrant. But there are several forces that impact turnout for elections. But I also would like to caution the duplicity of certain political players, because on the one hand, they say that the voters, when the voters see money, they should eat the money. And then there are leaders like Njeri's party leader, Rigathi Gachagua, who has gone on record and said that wakileta pesa, chukueni na mkule, lakini mujue munapigiana ni kura. So you see, it is a contradiction that I know that even she is facing at a personal level.
Kasmuel,
let me just land.
Understand in reference to that statement is that these are taxes.
Let me land, because you've gotten in the middle. So when he says, when Rigathi, for example, says that mkiletewa pesa mkule tu, lakini mjue mnapigiana ni kura, it means that regardless of who brings the money, as long as it's not our candidate, you just take the money. But then how will the cost of the vote go down? Because then remember, after they lose the election, they're the first ones to go on record to say that the voters were bribed. So at the top, we also need to change that attitude of thinking that it's just about the money. But also, people take money from politicians because of their material conditions. Sometimes, the person, if they're given a mattress before an election, and the person who has been sleeping on the floor and they've not been eating, if you give them a mattress and a morsel of bread, they will treasure that up over some imaginary project which they might not be a part of. This needs to change in the whole country. I'm not saying that all politicians are saints, but this will need to change it, and I agree that we need to change it from the perspective of the voter. And there are two challenges that we'll just need to look at. In terms of making these elections, if you want to revolutionize that space, let's look at that cost of that vote. And let's look at the issue of tribalism. If we get these two things,
fair enough.
If we get these two things right, these narratives will be stories of the past.
Kasmuel, the discussion is quite restricted to the young people, their role, their youthfulness, and their impact.
I understand.
If you were a political figure on a ballot, would you count at your age mates coming to vote for you?
Yes.
Would you?
I would. I mean, we just won Kasipu. It's a 27-year-old who won Kasipu. I'm telling you this because I do not know how it works in other parties, but in the Orange Democratic Movement, there is room for young people to win. Khair gets nominated in her early 20s. Senator Mheshimiwa Rene gets nominated in her mid-20s. So this whole narrative, specifically for the Orange Democratic Movement, in the kind of structures, the discipline we have set, our structures from the grassroots going all the way up, if you look even at our upper leadership, it's people who are in their 40s. Of course, there's a bit of a problem in the Youth League, which we are sorting out sooner rather than later, because
even though, Kasmuel, factually your party leader is 82 years of age.
But the party, the thing about the age of the party leader, I don't think that should be a question, because it is a bearer of the, he's a Gen Z.
All right.
Dr. Oburu Oginga is a young man.
As he often justifies. Njeri, let me come to you. You are a member of DCP. For someone maybe who wants to understand, you're both members of DCP and ODM respectively. Why have two of the Gen Z faces joined these diverse political parties? What attracted you at a personal level to join DCP?
First of all, during the Gen Z Mandamano, I was part of PNU party. And you see, political parties are meant to push your own conviction. You need to join a party that you feel what you believe in terms of politics is being pushed in that party. And again, as an aspirant, you have to toe the line to listen to your people. And when I went to seek a mandate to serve the people of Nyandarua, they told me, young girl, we love you, we love your articulation, we love your brains, but we as the people of Nyandarua feel that our party is more DCP, the one that we are, by then it did not even have a name, but they would tell me, the party that the impeached deputy president is gonna form is where we feel home, because we feel that is the party that is gonna speak on the injustices of this country, because first and foremost, we are serving, our party leader who is serving us is somebody who has gone through the good and the bad side of this regime. This is somebody who understands the pain of injustice. This is somebody who has sat us down as the young people and has asked us, what do you think we need to do as a country if tomorrow we take power? And when we were telling him what we need to be done, when the party was formed, we realized that everything that we had told him was there in place. And as a young person who believes in somebody walking the talk, when we said, you know what, we no longer want just one person in the neck representing the young people called youth leader. We need several young people in the neck.
And Njeri, one would argue regarding Gachagua.
Let me finish my point.
I'll give you to finish your point. One would argue regarding Gachagua was part of the government sometime last year.
It's a fact, he was part of the government. My point was, when Maandamano came up, he went to Mombasa, he did a press statement and said, this is wrong. He called out, and that is where their fallout became so big, because as a president, the president did a presser in Nairobi, then we saw his deputy doing a presser in Mombasa, something that had never been seen by Kenyans. We had never seen it in the protocol of government operations, and that is where, when we as young people saw that in the neck of DCP, we have been given 7 slots, all belonging to the young people, we felt now our voice in the neck is gonna be very powerful. And also, again, in terms of contributions to the by-election, I was part of the team that went to support our candidates in Kariobangi, in Narok Town where we won, in Kisa East where we went. So I feel DCP has given the young people a chance to lead at the front, not to just sit down and clap. We've been given the mandate to lead. And also in terms of leadership, when we talk about young elected leaders like Women Rep Kerenyaga, when we talk of our Senator in Nyandarua County, Senator Metho, there are young people below 35 who have been given a chance to lead these united opposition in their own capacity as young elected leaders.
All right, Kasmuel, on a personal level, you joined ODM after the youth-led protests. That party today is in a broad-based arrangement with the UDA and the Kenya Kwanza government. There are talks of terms, whether 1 or 2. Your party leader insists that the party is where the late party leader left it, which is in government. You are a youth league member. Where do you sit on that spectrum of terms if your party backs the man whom you protested against last year?
I mean, this is a rather obvious matter that we will only take ideological and vision-bearing direction from our party leader, His Excellency Dr. Oburu Oginga. There are no two ways about this, and that's why sometimes I get very bitter when I see political chicanery, even from members of our own ranks. That's why I will not even take it from anyone who terms himself the united opposition. It is very clear that there's a 10-point agenda that we have in place that includes meaningful inclusion of youth in public life, the fight on corruption, the audit of our debt, the reform, the implementation of the NADCO report, the cost of looking into the cost of living. And Odia said, I could go into what that 10-point agenda is.
All right.
But as a political party, the position that will be given, because we generate these positions from a democratic point, but our ideology, if you want to know anything about the Orange Democratic Movement in terms of direction, do not listen to anybody. If you have to listen, our magnum opus is the words of the party leader. So whatever the party leader says, that's what carries, because he bears the vision.
And Kasmuel, this is why I put the personal caveat, so that I get your personal individual reaction to the question.
Will decide is what I will follow. And I say this because
your individual opinion mattered last year when you were on the protest.
It did,
front, isn't it?
And when I partnered with my mentor and the most honorable, Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga,